And yep, we're live.
Yep, we're live.
And uh, yep, we're live. Love that auto plays. When it launches the tab and auto plays when I'm already streaming. Right.
Cool.
Okay, so I guess you want me to go ahead and go or
Um, I am totally not prepared.
okay.
Um, so yeah,
I
go.
just figure we'd go ahead and read this and kind of go over it.
Okay, so D, 303 heat. I'll go ahead and read the first part. Um, Heat is the self-restoration of matter to its formlessness, its fluidity, the triumph of its abstract homogeneity over specific determinatenesses. Its abstract, merely implicit continuity as negation of the negation is here posited as an activity, as an existent dissolution. Heat, therefore, appears formally, i.e., that is, in relation to spatial determination as such, as an expansion of matter in which it sublates or overcomes the boundedness, which is the specifying of the indifferent occupation of space. All right. And
Okay.
and you can move this around, right?
Uh,
You're keyed in,
yeah.
right?
Uh, that's right. Up here. Okay. You just need to approve, and there it is. Okay. I mean, the point I just noticed the thing this time around is that it's the expansion of matter. Because work space is expansion, right? Or
Yeah.
externality, so it's expansion. So yeah, it's in that direction. It's negation of negation, it expands. I don't think it's here. Oh, he does talk about it here in the Zuzats as well, where it's like it's kind of the opposite. It's in opposition to cohesion, right? From earlier, where it had
Hmm.
cohesion.
Yeah.
And so you have this kind of balance between what we now know is molecular cohesion and and the energy of the substance kind of balancing each other out, which is kind of why we have to be on in an atmosphere, for example. Um, but in here, we already got here because heat was the kind of the essence that remains, even though the form uh, sublates to whatever, depending on its temperature. And that's what we get to posit as an activity existed to dissolution. Spatial determination as such is indifferent to where it occupies space, right?
Yeah.
Wait, heat therefore makes body even more a unity than form does, but this unity is devoid of determination. Bodies into masses, but only one in which the parts stay clinging together. Yeah, because cohesion is now that in a empty unity with heat. It's a new unity that's empty determination, but it's there. Okay.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's pretty much what he goes into here.
Yeah. It's basically tightening up what we already talked about last
Yeah.
time, which is the movement of particles and
Right.
such, and he's actually giving it a name and such here,
Like
which is
it's kind of
cool.
funny. He was also critiquing time that people that are treating it as physical heat as physical substance. Like, no, it can be. It's literally can be part of the thing itself. That's some underlying substrate that's not that looks like a substance. And holy crap, I love. Okay, I am not going to use the scroll bar again. I always love that part. Okay. Yep, there you are. All right.
This real negation of the body's own nature is therefore its state of not belonging affirmatively to itself and its existence. This, the body's existence, is rather a community with others and the communication of itself to them, external heat. The passivity of a body in regard to heat rests on the continuity of matter, which is present in principle, in specific gravity and cohesion, and in virtue of this primary ideality, the modification of specific gravity and cohesion cannot form a real barrier for such communication for the positing of a community with other bodies.
I guess it's what we would know the flow of heat.
Right.
Modification and cohesion cannot form a real barrier for such communication for the positing. Ah, okay.
Heat flow.
Well, yeah, I'm just thinking about it from the metaphysical perspective here. No, it's just again correlating it with its opposite cohesion, which is related to specific gravity. Yeah. So it's a continuation of the same thing we talked about, but heat flow, right? Um, yeah, this is I'm just yeah, I'm just going through because I do I have my copy the right spot too? There we go. I was just trying to think what yeah, I don't oh, it does continue to remark on the next page. That's why I was a little confused by the that's not an addendum, that's just additional information about the previous. I don't think this is a lot. Yeah, because it's just this page. And yeah, here's the part where he's critiquing the concept of an actual literal caloric. Um, about how intrinsically non-cohesive materials are worse conductors of heat than metals, which is like the most compact continuous form. Yeah, this mean yeah, the fact that you and I guess it's kind of interesting to think back to phenomenology here with again with and the logic with the appearance.
Yeah.
Um that rests mainly on first that heat can be transmitted and so separable from the body, which is why people would think it's a physical. Um so it must be exist separately. And secondly, on the various mechanical terminations connected with this, we can which can be introduced in transmission of heat, and also the determinations that connect with that. But at least one will hesitate to call heat a body or even something corporeal. Yeah, and this is why they couldn't find it, and they kept looking for it, right? It reminds me in meteorology because we got all these like besides the fact this literally applies as heat, but like pressure systems and such do appear to move, but they don't actually move because there's nothing corporeal. It's just again another arrangement of air molecules, except at this point it's the density of the air. So, which is why in meteorology we call it the actual movement of properties like this advection, which is the same thing, probably in other ones, but so it's the movement of a property that's itself not a physical corporeal thing. So yeah, I think it's kind of gets into the dichotomy I've always had in thinking about pressure systems moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he talks about a little
I
bit
re
about the
I really like how he um um tries to
how did gosh dang it.
I really like how he links up the categorical with the physical processes here.
Hmm.
And yeah, just like you said, transmission of heat. Yeah.
So some experiments by Count Rumford and others which Hegel cites as refuting the idea of caloric and linking heat to like friction.
Yeah, these demonstrate irrefutably that heat is in its origin and nature a mere condition or state of body. Yeah, I guess I can start.
Posits exact likeness of a body with other bodies.
In the world of appearance, sound and heat are themselves appearances. Oh, heat therefore is communicable because it is determined as an appearance and not merely as such, but within the fields where the reality of matter is presupposed. It is a being which is at the same time an illusory being, or an
Yeah.
illusory being which is still a being.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's sort of like how we were talking about last time. How can you describe a state of matter that exists concurrently with any matter whatsoever, right? Any matter is heated at any point, and the heat is always the same, but the matter isn't always the same, you know, right? And so you're almost talking about two different things, and one of them is very concrete, and the other is almost abstract, a second body within a body, but really it's not a body at all, but a state. Yeah, the communicated state is therefore determined and is posited by an other in accordance with its implicit aspect, a manifestation simply of its mere implicit being, but this state as an activity must also be actual. Yeah, exactly. Exactly as he's putting it there. Yeah, the mode of manifesting is thus twofold, as an active incipient manifestation and as passive. Thus a body can have an inner source of heat, others receive heat from outside. See, yeah. Yeah. Once again, I'm working it through, go to the next paragraph, and Hegel writes exactly what you're thinking.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. It's like he'd had implicit imminent critique leads you to the next step.
Who'd have thought? You know what I mean? That's why I love this shit. It just,
Oh, just as a reminder, because I was at a fraternity kind of retreat thing last weekend, and the picture they took of us as a whole, I was wearing one of my Hegel shirts. So,
nice. That's cool. Yeah, you're not going to find an you're not going to find an Night Shyamalan twist in Hegel. Okay, and if you do, you read it wrong. Okay, that's what I don't get about half of these people who are like Hegel is unreadable. Dude, Hegel is like the most ordered, like almost predictable. If you really engage with it, the next thing follows, right? I mean, it just does. You work through the problem, you go to the next thing, and it's exactly what you should expect if you get the logic right, which was I think his entire point is that you know. Anyway, yeah, but don't ask analytic Marxists about that because they'll just say, "Oh, I don't understand it and I can't understand it. And if I did understand it, well, it would blow my thesis out of the water, so I can't afford to understand it." Just cynical bullshit. So, guys, what the hell are we going to do about Chicago? Like at this point, we've got to have something show up.
he's my last check, he was still thinking about it, even though we've seen the movement, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Meanwhile, you guys are like 50th in the nation in terms of education and literary excellence, literacy. I saw a slide the other day that showed like Boston, Massachusetts was like the number one state, and Oklahoma was the fifth, like 50th in
Yeah,
terms of outcomes. And I was just like,
for, we're for the longest like couple decades, we've always been in a lower for 40 or below. But
that's just, yeah, it's depressing.
yeah, the only thing I can say it is been waking a lot of people up. So
Yeah.
like around here we've had people suspicious of 50-51 and being liberals and stuff nationally, and we're like, have you that's it's like any other kind of like bottom up grassroots approach. It's more by the local people. And my local 50-51 has been continuously at least been letting DSA be a major player in it. So it's like they're not scared of the socialist label already.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you just get with your local group, I guess. Chicago, as far as I'm aware, they're overall trying to stand against it.
Yeah.
Okay, so 720. But yeah, it's kind of like I said, it's kind of funny going through this. I'm like, oh hey, he kind of already thought like, hey, I know it seems like it's physical, but what if it's actually an underlying substrate is where heat actually is, kind of thing, and in the cohesion of the matter itself.
Yeah.
Now, that was probably a competing theory at the time as well that he read and was able to, reasonable to reason into being correct. But the fact that logic is already there, this spelled out this early kind of is still interesting.
Yeah. Well, remember all the science already existed at the time, and he's, you know, it's not like remember, it's not like he's um piecing together the science from a scientist's point of view. He's well read on the already existing science, and he knows where to fit it into his categorical scheme well, to where it makes sense. And it's kind of a double whammy, because even if you get something wrong, that doesn't mean that the logical scheme is wrong. It just means that the science puzzle piece needs to be repositioned somewhere else in the categorical scheme, which is the case, you know. Um,
Yeah.
but then again, he's not infallible either, as we saw with the small logic, where his last revisions actually um, revised the hardest part of the book, which is the doctrine of essence, which is right where we're at here in nature. Like, it's really difficult to do essential
It's just
logic.
it's I mean, it's right. It's kind of like he was getting on it kind of still within a reasonable time frame and a bit early on before it became settled. And so it's just kind of funny how much a lot of this stuff has just was already we don't have to really change anything so far. Which is now I'm like, oh, this is and then I'm thinking about Holgate's trying to rekindle interest in this book.
Yeah.
Gallery.
What starts with the letter A?
Oh, okay. I think he's getting to a right good point. Now, even though the concept matter was so stretched that gravity, its fundamental determination was abandoned, for the question was raised whether such matter can be weighed or not in terms of the caloric. Nevertheless, the objective essence of material stuff was still presupposed. Heck, it was weightless, but still supposedly a substance, right? One which was supposed to be indestructible, independent, and self-subsistent, coming and going, increasing and diminishing in a particular place. It is this conception of external accretion at which the metaphysics of the understanding stops short, making it the original relationship, especially of heat. Heat matter is supposed to be added to a body, to be accumulated or be latent where it does not appear, and yet subsequently heat is manifested. Yeah, that its understanding stops short, making it the original relationship. Yeah, I mean, we understand that point too, having gone through Hegel, but yeah, just seeing it laid out again. Oh, you just sort of fall back on it being, oh, hey, yeah, another physical thing here. It's like when they were searching for the planet Vulcan, because the physics of gravity predicted it at the time. And then the only thing that finally showed why it was wrong was Einsteinian gravity,
Yeah.
showing it was, yeah, actually solving the recession of the orbit of Mercury.
Yeah.
Um, Again, there's Rumford's experiment. More. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just had
Sorry.
a highlight because that's I was reading something.
Mumford was actually an American.
Oh yeah, it's more detail in Rumford's experiment that he mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Why it maintained it must be not a separate substance, whereas it was maintained the great heat produced in the metal fragments was called forth from the surrounding bodies by the intense friction. Rumford himself said it was generated in the metal itself, since when he enclosed the hole in wood, which, being a bad conductor, did not let the heat through, the metal fragments came out just as glowing hot as when there was no such covering. Which, which that's when the understanding makes itself substrates which are not recognized through the notion. Makes it so. Yeah, it's inventing false substrates.
Hmm.
So in this case, this is a separate external substrate, not a internal or like self-relating substrate. And then we, of course, talking about they're no more than moments being determinants of which materials they are quantitative and so are intensive or to be determined by degrees, which is how we have to measure temperature by degrees. Okay.
Man, audiobook bay is the best.
Yeah, that's
It's the literal best. Sorry, off topic there. I told you my brain is applesauce, but
oh, that's fine.
I'm trying to keep up.
I was looking for that actually at one point, so thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, well, in Hegel, we went through a couple of different false substrates. First one was with sound,
Hmm.
second
Yeah.
with heat, and actually physics still had more false substrates that I don't think Hegel got to discuss, but like the concept of ether.
Yeah.
It was a big deal
Yeah, this was not
Yeah.
even.
in late 19th century physics, and really continued until Einstein showed that the ether was not necessary for explaining things like electromagnetism.
We probably still have false substrates
Sure.
somewhere in there. I couldn't tell you what they are at this point. Um, but I bet you they still exist, or they
Sure.
exist without people having figured them out. I find that so cool that well, I mean, it's his entire point is that when you go through a science course, the philosophy structuring the body of knowledge behind it is taken completely for granted, which is why it's necessary to develop a philosophy of nature in the first place, is because uh, there's guesswork and then there's being able to logically piece together the world in such a way that the illusions fall away, which again, for our audience who's heard this like a broken record, is how Marx was able to eventually systematically see past the veil, see past the commodity fetish, which is to this day itself a false substrate through which we imagine we see how the economy works. And in fact, it doesn't work that way at all. Wow, yeah, Jim, that's a great way to think of it now that I think about it, actually. Commodity fetish is a false substrate. Fuck.
Arguably, contemporary physics has gone wrong because physicists no longer really see the need for a philosophy of nature.
Yeah.
I mean, early 20th century physicists all realized they needed a philosophy of nature. And applies, that was true of Einstein, true of Bohr, true of Heisenberg, any of those guys, Schrodinger. They all understood they needed it. In fact, like young Einstein, he was part of study groups that they studied, like Kant and Hume and Kant and Mach. They studied what the philosophers had to say about the natural sciences.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just kind of quickly over throw a five. It's like, oh yeah, this rereading this again. It's like, okay, this is logically why specific thermal capacity makes sense. And I can read
Yeah.
The communication of heat to different bodies contains in itself only the abstract continuation of this determination through indeterminate materiality. Heat is, to this extent, not capable of qualitative dimensions within itself, but only to the abstract opposition of positive and negative, and of quantum and degree, in the form of an abstract equilibrium, an equalization of temperature in the bodies among which varying degrees of temperature are distributed. Since, however, heat is an alteration of specific gravity and cohesion, it is at the same time bound up with these determinations, and the outside communicated temperature is conditioned and determined in its existence in the body to which it is transmitted by the particular specific gravity and cohesion of that body, specific thermal capacity.
Yeah.
Which again, specific thermal capacity is defined in science with one to be water. Because it is a useful substance to set everything around. Oh yeah, it's like okay, it's like as it heats up, its specific thermal capacity. It can only hold so much heat or gain so much heat, period, which is water takes so long to heat up and then it holds onto it for so long.
Yeah.
Um, oh, because it has capacity, therefore it looks like it has, again, a physical thing that it's holding on to.
Yeah. And if you go above that thermal capacity, then you have a shift in matter state. Water goes into a gas. If that thermal capacity is exceeded.
And
If the low capacity is exceeded, you get ice and so on and so forth.
also, I mean, also thinking because, like, if you have certain physical substances, when you heat up to a certain point, that turns into emitting visible light itself, because it all radiating light because of the temperature causing that vibration, right? Ugh.
Ugh. Assumption of material self-subsistence of heat. Yeah.
Because it's non-empirical.
Yeah.
Oh, here, wait, non-empirical. I thought Hegel was idealist.
What do you want?
Serves in its way to make the self of heat empirically serves in this way to make the self-subsistence of heat as a material substance empirically irrefutable. Makes a concept of it so strong in being non-empirical, it must necessarily be always true. Yeah, it keeps getting refined in a way that
Yeah.
can't see it because of this, rather than just not being there. Metaphysics of self as opposed to set experience is indeed presupposed a priori. Empirically confirm the determination of self, namely of an alteration of specific gravity and cohesion, is manifest as heat. Is easily perceived and generating heat. Yeah, in fermentations and chemical processes, yeah, a lot of things that are exothermic or endothermic. And mechanical, you have friction leading to heat, which can even be used to light wood. Oh, no, two pieces of wood among savages. Hmm. Yeah.
Drew pepper.
Yeah, adding enough heat that it
Mhm.
eventually catches fire.
Not bad. Do you want to get ready for bed? I'll be right back. I'm listening.
No problem. Here's the whole. Let's see here. Okay, I'll control it from here. Further difficulties to grasp that connection of heat with specific gravity and cohesion as the existent ideality of material, moreover, in existence of what is negative, which itself contains a determinateness of what is negated, which further has the determinateness of a quantum, in which, as the ideality of an existence, is the latter's self-externality and self-positing in another, that is, the communication of itself. Here, as throughout the whole of philosophy of nature, all that we have to do is substitute for the categories of the understanding the thought relationships of the speculative notion, and grasp and determine the phenomena in terms of the latter. Yep, letting dialectics move past pure identities, right? Yeah, because that's what they were doing with caloric. It's itself purely self-identity. Oh, it seems to disappear from here. Oh, that's just because it's demanifested itself and remanifested itself over here. Yeah, talking about a specific node where specific heat capacity differs depending on the substance. So two things like iron and stone heated the same temperature. Always one cools faster than the other. That water takes 13 times more heat to raise its temperature than mercury. Similarly, most might produce by transmitted heat varies. Mercury melts at much lower temperature than all other metals. The question arises, which form of inwardness of a body is manifest here? Inwardness is in the forms of cohesion, punctiformity, linearity, and superficiality. Specific gravity. Yeah, I think this is kind of going in again to how specific gravity and cohesion relate again to heat, the specific heat of the body. Okay. The specific gravity reveals itself as the inwardness which makes itself effective here. Specifically, specific assertiveness of cohesion with the body is subsisting is also still preserved in its specific inwardness. Now, inwardness with self-sublating cohesion is still only universal. Thus reveals as an inwardness. Well, yeah. There, this way, thermal. Yeah, we've already talked about this a bit before.
Yeah, we have.
It's just getting really into the gritty of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and similarly, is maintaining has been latent when it is evident that the heat does not come from outside but generally internally. Heat is supposed to become latent when cold is produced by the evaporation of frozen water is standing at 0 loses, so it is said the heat which is applied to melt it, since its temperature is not raised thereby. And that was their evidence that there is a caloric to it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could still see that how they got to that, not that it's the relationship of hydrogen atoms attracting to each other that causes that change.
Right. Well,
The energy of between the hydrogen that starts, yeah, because
yeah.
it come from the molecules itself. It doesn't come from each molecule individually itself. It comes from a different interaction that's still part of cohesion.
Yeah.
Okay, I was trying to think about that again through like, oh no, that's cohesion again. just a different aspect of it than what water usually does for most of the rest of the temperature spectrum. Which now we're talking. Yeah, it's been a bit since I read this, so because yeah, greater heat vapors less specific temperature generates greater heat in precipitation than in their elastic states. i.e. expansion does duty for temperature as intensity. Oh yeah, and latency is the yeah, I think it's still called latency in modern thermodynamics.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So it's when the temperature, the heat change is affecting the cohesion more directly than just sort of warming or cooling. Okay.
Yeah.
That really shows it's supposed to always being added and subtracted, but it will not be admitted that heat as a material substance passes away since it is self-subsistent. It is said, therefore, to be merely latent and still yet present.
Yeah.
So it's like the Epstein list is a hoax, but at the same time, I was part of the sting operation to get Epstein. Wait, you were investigating a hoax? How would you let that happen?
I'm still waiting for someone to come up with an independent piece of information that's not actually controlled by the ruling class to sort of slip through. It
Yeah.
hasn't happened so far, and if it has, they've done a great job at like gaslighting everybody. It's but the thing is, like it implicates the Democrats as well. I know we're shifting subject here,
Yeah.
but because it implicates the Democrats as much, if not more, they're not willing to go out on the limb to say, okay, well, let's put,
I mean, there was a reason why Biden never released those documents.
yeah.
I mean, the
I mean
most
that would
obvious,
have been the end of it, you know?
yeah, the most obvious Democrat would have been him because would have been Clinton, Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if all that's holding back fascism at this point is all of the dirt each of the parties have on each other, and now the Republicans are in like a position to be like, this will be buried so deep, it'll be under Jimmy Hoffa, you know. God. I'm also wondering, like I was driving around the other day and I thought to myself, what if Luigi was a member of Anonymous and we just didn't know it? And like Anonymous is like, you know what I mean? Like, too, too. Like that's where he came from. Because it almost seems like he was random, but what if it wasn't?
You got the other guy where he was supposed to be going to the NFL, but ended up with BlackRock.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Shit. Man. I don't know. And even trying to figure out what's what is an exercise in conspiracy theory itself. Like you don't really know and you're not really going to know unless someone like blatantly, I don't know.
Yeah, again, this is
Nice.
kind of again going.
Roast coffee. See,
Yeah,
even he even he was like, "You know what? I love me a good cup of coffee." Yeah, I caught that.
yeah, again, we're just kind of going into the same thing we've said, hammer down again and again, pun intended, because hammering generates heat.
Yep. Heat as
So,
temperature in general is in the first place the as yet abstract dissolution of specified materiality, a dissolution conditioned in its determinateness and its existence. A dissolution conditioned, okay, but in realizing itself, or as actually realized, this consumption of bodily peculiarity comes to exist as a pure physical ideality, as the negation of materiality set free and issuing forth as light. He's talking about the sun, hydrogen, and
Yeah.
helium, and so forth. Though in the form of flame, a negation of matter still tied to matter. As fire first developed itself out of its in itself air, so here fire is posited as externally conditioned, as self-produced out of its existent notional moments within the sphere of conditioned existence. Furthermore, as thus finite, fire consumes itself together with the conditions whose consumption it is. Love that last sentence. Because it ties together the process of consumption as well as the matter um, itself.
And I guess this also goes to the next point about light as such as cold, which I'm trying to think like, yeah, light is just the emission of photons, but
Yeah,
heat is a different kind of form of of energy within the cohesion of substance itself. And yet we know infrared light can generate heat, I guess, just because it's absorbed and re-emitted by the substance. Okay, never mind. That's how that translates.
yeah. Photons excite matter into,
Yeah.
the nerdy version is that light as photons excites matter
Yeah.
into vibration, which is itself heat.
Which is why meteorology, convection is so important.
Yeah.
Just like we have at least had a tornado. Nope, it's still a tornado warning up in the Oklahoma, Texas panhandles.
Which is interesting because you have different effects from you have different effects from different um, bodily body proximity to the Earth. So you have the tides, which are caused by the gravity of the moon because the moon is so close,
And the
and so
sun.
that's one effect within the Earth's sphere. But another effect is the photons from the distant sun, but not so distant enough to actually affect the air, which the photons turn the atmosphere into a kinetic body of heat and cold and so on and so forth with, you know, and yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Oh, there it was. So the moon's gravity is over 2,000 times stronger than that of the sun for tides.
Yeah.
I was wondering how much strong that was. Yep, again, we're also reiterating light from the previous chapter, and then this is how it, I think this is the end of it, right? Yeah,
Yeah, it is.
transition to individuality, because this is where form becomes important. Yep.
Yep.
The development of real matter, i.e., matter imbued with form, thus passes over into its totality, into the pure ideality of its determinations in abstractly self-identical selfhood, which in this sphere of external individuality itself becomes external as flame and so disappears. The conditioned character of this sphere consists in the form being specifying of heavy matter, and individuality as totality being at first only implicit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It posited the moment of real dissolution of the immediacy specified material things with their initial mutual indifference. The form of totality is consequently now immanent in matter, which is not resisted. Selfhood is the infinite self-relating form has, as such, entered existence. It maintains itself in the externalities subjected to it and is as totality, which freely determines these material things, free individuality. Yet now we've come to the concept of form of this form. Me understand, make sure I'm understanding that the form of the thing is now an expression of the internality itself.
Yes. Yeah.
Actually, I feel like I'm glad I paused and came back to this because it's so fresh enough. I'm picking up on nuances I missed before. Okay, go ahead. Do your thing.
Hang on just a second.
Yep. Not that one. All right, here's your towel. Love you. Okay. I don't know, I was just skimming through this. This is really just, I guess, is the Zuzats is the summary of this chapter, right? So where space initially the configurations of point, line, and surface were only negations of space, now these are described in form in a matter determined solely by the form itself. They're no longer mere spatial outlines, but as also differentiations of material body. Now we have real spatial configurations in matter which complete themselves in the totality of the surface. Yep. How we get started. Cohesion proves itself in still dissolution. It's the first rage of subjectivity. You must, in the first museum, must show itself as sublated as posited. Thus, as always, you must return to the beginning. Cohesion constituted its form by condition by matter, or was it? Cohesion negates its own self. This mirror in itselfness, the merely conditioned mode of its existence of form. Yeah, it's free because it's no longer conditioned. It's uncon it's the unity of the differences of the form of the matter itself. Physical gravity is only abstractly free. Matter melting under heat is receptive to form. The conditionedness of sound is okay. Is therefore sublated in their form is no longer encounters opposition, as it's still referring itself to another. Heat is shape and process of liberating itself from shape. A light which gives itself substance in which contains a moment of passive shape as sublated within itself.
Sorry, family duties.
Yep.
Okay, so next up is the physics of the total individuality.
So they
Awesome.
was saying if you wanted to kind of re-review the chapter, the Zuzats at 307 is a good look back.
Oh, 307?
Yeah. You
Yeah,
don't have to read it now, but like,
over the week.
yeah, it
Okay.
and I
Cool.
think we I don't know if you want to continue going, even though it is 9 your time, but it's just kind of an introduction to the rest of the chat of the section.
Yeah. Um, actually, I think I have to get going since it is 9 because I need to finish putting the kids to bed.
So yeah, just we have shape going to magnetism, difference coming into electricity, and then the unity reality into chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a good look ahead.
The chemical process.
And then let's see, your shape isn't too long.
Why don't we read through the end of shape then?
Yeah, because that's a lot of Zuzats. That's what I was trying to remember. This is the part I was like, oh, another long dictate.
Well, the good thing about that is most of the Zuzats is actually really accessible for reading.
Yeah,
And
it just
so yeah, it's
it's always
centering.
funny because just you just know Hegel has definitely something he really wanted to say.
Yes, about calculus. Wait, wrong book.
Still need to read that in full again.
I know. Hoolgate does a pretty decent reading of it in Hegel on Being, which I haven't gotten to yet, but he basically tackles the whole thing and tries to make it as accessible as he can.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember because I had to learn the fundamentals of calculus when I was in high school and college.
Yeah. All right, cool, comrades. We'll see you next Monday.
All right. Thanks,
Through the
everybody.
end of shape. Have a
Yeah.
great one.